Disclaimer, this video will be very much just sort of a reflection and trying to get my thoughts out. Deeper reflections and dwelling on specific themes, scenes and characters, that will all come later. I'm not expecting this to be original or say anything that hasn't been said. I am just voicing the incredible love I have for this show. Alright, Frieren. Let's talk about Frieren. It's the kind of show that I really want to look back on one day and just remember how I felt the first time I watched it. It's that good. So let's just start. Did I like it? Yes, I'm obsessed with it. I told my friends that essentially ever since I finished the first season, about 4 days ago, every idle second in my day, I've just been thinking about Frieren. It's amazing. It's incredible. I think the first thing that just jumped out at me was, from the get-go, episode 1, the themes were already so central, and the main struggles of the protagonist Frieren were set up so perfectly and beautifully. You were introduced to the hero party, and within the first episode, you felt so attached to them. I felt like I'd already seen so much of their life and understood these characters and were really attached to them. And the way they were able to get that across so quickly was just incredible. And yeah, so the themes of time. Frieren is an immortal elf in a world made for mortal men. Obviously, as a deep lover of Tolkien, this is a theme that I'm very familiar with, but I guess it's so refreshing to see it done in a contemporary way, in a completely different setting, in a completely different medium, and have that be the central part of the narrative. Oh, it's amazing. So yeah, themes of forgetfulness, and memories, and passing and death, and the decay of time. Frieren is a timeless elf, compared to, she's essentially living in eternity compared to her human companions. And not only does it set up all of these sort of moments of profound sadness and longing, but it's displayed in Frieren's personality and her apparent apathy to begin with, and her journey towards trying to understand humans better. I think the show did an incredible job. I'm sort of moving into character now, at just depicting what an elf would actually behave like around humans, and how there is a massive sort of divide between perceptions between immortals and mortals. And I think you get that a lot in Tolkien, but on this is just so character driven, this narrative, that I think in some ways you get to dwell more on that. You get to dwell more on, well, okay, for Frieren, this journey only lasted 10 years. It's not even 100th of her lifetime. For Himmel and the others, they're thinking, this is the moment of my life. This is what, everything I've done so far has led up to, and everything after this will be, in comparison, insignificant, and I'll always remember this journey. And later on, obviously, we'll see that it does change Frieren deeply. Even those 10 years, even that 100th of her life, sets her on a new course. But yeah, I really enjoyed seeing what that would look like in a very, very well-written, well-thought-out way. I love all the characters, not just Frieren. I love Haita. Almost love his character design, visually, as much as his character himself. And that one shot of Frieren pouring alcohol over his headstone is just so beautiful to me. It's just fascinating to me that Himmel has already passed and Frieren is learning more about him and drawing closer to the memories she has of him. And I'm so excited to see where that goes and how that develops. And it's such a fascinating idea and so profoundly sad. And I love Himmel as a character. I mean, he's beautifully written. His voice actor, I watched it subbed, so his Japanese voice actor is incredible. I'm probably going to go and watch it back dubbed because apparently his voice actor in English is also really good. So yeah, just character. It's a character-driven narrative. I haven't even talked about sort of the other main protagonist, arguably, which is Fern, and she's just the perfect counterpoint to Frieren. She's cold, but she's cold in a different way. And her relationship with Stark is hilarious. I love the way they've written time in this show and the way that they display it narratively. They let their characters evolve and they're not afraid to, like in the first episode alone, right? They're not afraid to drop us in with the 4 heroes, take them into town, go, look, the journey's over, and go, okay, now we're going to skip ahead 50 years. And they do it in a really beautiful way. That one animation of the stars wheeling across the sky and the snow falling and disappearing was beautiful, but more so the way that we saw Frieren wandering around and getting up to her various antics. And the way they compiled it together, you wouldn't be surprised if it was only a week, because she doesn't look any different. You hear some dialogue from her in a shot and she's like, oh yeah, the starfall is probably happening soon. And you're like, wait, hang on, didn't you say that happened every 50 years? It's been 50 years and then you see Himmel in town and he's old and you're like, holy crap. So I love the way they write time, and it didn't feel janky or forced. But at the same time, it gave you the perspective and the inherent apathy that an elf must have. She just values time completely differently. To her 50 years, she can spend on a sole task, where that would be, a literal life's work for a human. Much more significant period of time. So yeah, I love that, and I love how then eventually, once Fern comes into the picture and Stark, obviously human characters, it slows right down. And I mean, the amount of change that Frieren is going through in these short years is absolutely remarkable. So, character, incredible. The themes that they're drawing out are incredible. I will want to dwell on this for so much longer, but this is just an introductory sort of thoughts. I also love how they've taken, so we're getting on to sort of world building now. They've taken a very classic setting. I mean, it's almost Dungeons and Dragons-esque. It's just very classic fantasy. We've got several elves, we've got dwarves, dragons, all sorts of beasts, and of course humans. But they have flipped every cliche, from the mimic to the immortal elf to the hero's journey. They've flipped it all completely on its head, and not in a, we're doing this just to subvert expectations and be different, but in a way that is so profound and has so much depth. And so I love the way that we get to encounter a familiar world in many ways in such a fresh light. Oh, it's beautiful. And the magic system, while I need to go back and watch it again and probably read up on it and properly understand what's happening, the parts that stood out most to me were the visualization and the imagination components. I love that idea. Up until now, magic systems I've encountered in fantasy, the most poignant ones, but now they're quite overdone. Sort of that Earthsea idea of words, the power of words, and everything having a true name. This is much more, it allows for magic to change and grow and evolve. You see the demons once were the only ones using magic, then Flame, or Ciri, on a whim, trained Flame, who then gave magic to humans and convinced them all that it would be something worthwhile perfecting. And in this one startling scene with Qual, one of the elder demons of the Demon King, the servants, he had developed Zotroc or Zatroc. Can't quite remember. Don't kill me for that. And yeah, I mean, obviously everyone remembers the scene, but I just thought it was awesome. You know, he's developed this brutal spell that is far too powerful. It can pierce any barrier, magical barrier, and armor, even with defensive properties, and it destroys the body, and it's this offensive spell. And 80 years ago, when the Heroes Party went through, they just had to seal him away. He was too powerful, even Frieren couldn't do anything about it. But in those 80 years he's been sealed, humankind has taken that concept, they've studied it, they've learnt it, they've integrated it into their magic system, they've, you know, created defensive spells that can combat it, and they've perfected it. And so when Frieren comes back with Fern, 80 years later, destroys the seal and needs to defeat Qual, his magic that was once solely his and was a trump card, is now, according to Fern, ordinary offensive magic. And she can defend it, and she knows it, she can cast it, and it's beautiful. It shows that evolution, and obviously, I mean, it just shows how much humans can achieve compared to an elf or a demon's lifetime, you know, a very short 80 years. I love that about the magic system. It's evolution, and I love the visualization. I want to make a completely separate video on that, maybe, but my motivation goes up and down. The music, got to talk about the music. It's incredible. It's really cranked a lot, which I don't mind at all. Again, there are some parts where it is just pure fantasy music, and I love it for that. But some of the tracks, I mean, the main theme is just so beautiful. It is a score that's sort of rivaling, in some ways, you know, a Lord of the Rings track. Not in cultural influence or sort of its timelessness. I guess we'll have to see. That's something that it's only been out for, you know, a year and a half, 2 years. That's just something I have to wait. But for the piece of media that it is, you know, written for, I mean, it's absolutely perfect. It just enhances every scene and plays upon every theme so beautifully. I love it. And the animation, of course, I'm getting into more, I mean, animation is not something that I can really say a whole lot on. I can say a lot about the cinematography. Holy crap. I mean, this anime has incredible cinematography. I'll try and put some clips over right now demonstrating it. I can't think of many off the top. Maybe Stark holding the dragon's head. And I think previously in that scene, you view him through the jaws of the dragon. That was sick. I've already said the Hyters pouring alcohol over Hyter's grave. So beautiful. But yeah, the animation itself, Frieren's hair, everything is just drop dead gorgeous. And it fits the story so well. And I'm starting to read the manga, and I can see where there are actually places where there's been stylistic changes made, but I think that's great. I always noticed, and I actually really love it. At the first I was kind of thrown off by it, but the eyebrows, it's particularly noticeable in like Himmel and Stark, kind of like can be seen through the hair of a character's face, but I thought that was awesome. And then finally, it's just the story, right? The plot, the overarching narrative. And I mean, I've already touched on this, but just the idea of taking a hero's journey, the most classic, for the 20th and 21st century, the most repeated in every different way form of storytelling, all of these classic archetypes. You've got the elf, you know, the cold, distant elf. You've got the warrior, you've got the coward, you've got the drunkard, you've got everything. And then to go, okay, the journey's already over. The most significant point in the history of the world that you know about happened 80 years ago. And so far, we haven't even seen the Demon King. We've only just heard that the hero's party defeated him. And that was 80 years ago, from when the anime starts. I mean, it's just like, the journey's already over. And the whole story is about Frieren's regret and her recollections of the journey she had, and her transition towards wanting to find out more about humans, and retracing her steps, retracing as closely as she can the journey that Himmel went on. And the flashbacks are not over the top, they're not just inserted into the narrative, they are placed at incredible points in the real-time story. For example, I've watched this episode back because I loved it so much, when Stark has to face off against the dragon before he's left with Fern and Frieren, and his hands are shaking. I mean, that's in real time, that's adding depth into that current timeline. And then there's a flashback as Frieren sees Stark's handshake to Eisen and his handshaking and the conversation they have. You know, you're scared, but Eisen's not ashamed. He says it fears what got me here. And Frieren's able to share that with Stark, and that's able to push Stark over the literal edge to jump down into the arena with the dragon, who he ends up killing without any help. But the flashback is placed at such an incredible point where it provides more depth into Frieren's character, more depth into Eisen's character, it provides more context to the journey that the heroes went on. But above all else, it is, you know, a cog. It's pushing the story and pushing Stark's character forward. I mean, that's exactly what a flashback should do. It's not just memories for the sake of memories, and that happens constantly. It's such good writing. And so we're constantly retracing the steps of Frieren and the hero's party 80 years later with Fern and Stark and various other characters along the way, and there's so many cutscenes. But it's just incredible how, the journey they took 80 years ago is breathing new life and meaning into the current timeline. And they're not separated at all. And it's obviously, they're so much more connected because Frieren is developing, at least as I understand, a relationship with Himmel who's not even there. She's finding out more about him. I mean, she fingers that ring that he gave her. That almost broke my heart when I heard about the butterfly being a symbol of eternal love that Stark actually accidentally gives to Fern, and that Himmel had given to Frieren 80 years earlier. I mean, so the writing and the story and the narrative is just absolutely genius. Every archetype, I mean, even the mimic, so funny. It got me every time. It's hilarious. But then Frieren talks about, I can't even remember now, something about, you know, Fern has a spell that can detect whether it's a mimic up to 99% accuracy, but Frieren will always still check because it's the 1% that really counts. I don't know, man. I love this show. It is so beautiful. I bought the first volume of manga. I'm going to get one each week until I finish. Well, I'm caught up because it's not finished releasing. And yeah, I'm going to watch this back, the dubbed version. And yeah, this is the sort of story that there's enough content and there's enough depth that I could make videos on it. And keep reflecting on it in a very different way to most other shows and animes that I've watched. I'm tempted to do it with Haikyuu often, but the fact that they're doing this in fantasy, it's I've just been so burnt out by fantasy in the last few years, man, and it's such a breath of fresh air. But yeah, those are my initial thoughts. I'm sure they will change. I would love to add more, but yeah, I really wanted to get something out there and reflect, almost just for me to look back on as much as anything, before doing more research and dwelling on it more. So thanks for watching.